On the Radio is brought to you by Zurich Insurance, the perfect place to catch up with all things Melbourne. If you enjoy this content and want more inside access from the team, make sure you visit the club website.
And the Dees forward has joined us on the Breakfast Club on a Friday morning. Ben, good morning.
Hello there, guys. I would get used to that. Dees forward, a little bit different,
yes,
but I like it.
Yeah, well, you're going to need to like it for a little while, so that's pretty straightforward. Hey, we've been hammering Rama for the last couple of weeks about how long it could take to get the Ben Brown deal done. The Ben Brown deal is part of Victorian vernacular and footy vernacular in the last couple of months. Ben, were you a bit nervous, or were you always very comfortable that the right outcome would get to pass?
I was always pretty confident. I suppose from right early in the process, Melbourne, I think it made me feel really valued and like I'd really want to have me part of the club. So, it made it a pretty clear choice for me in the end where I wanted to go, and Rama guided me through the process perfectly, so made it pretty easy for me.
When did this start to formulate, this opportunity or the situation where you found yourself in and your time at the Kangaroos was going to end? How far back do you go when you first worked out this was what it might look like going forward for you?
Well, I suppose it was my exit meeting at the end of the year with North. Sat down with Brady Rawlings and Reece Shaw, and they kind of told me that it'd be best for me to look elsewhere, and that the club was probably looking to go into a rebuilding phase. And so for me personally, I suppose that was the moment. In conjunction with Ramo, we'd pretty much been talking exclusively to North and trying to get a deal done there up until that point. So obviously it was disappointing to hear that they wanted to move in a different direction, but you kind of understand that that's the way the footy business works, that clubs can be on a different wavelength to what you are. So I'm really happy with the way it's worked out in the end, and can't wait to start the Dees.
So Ben, two questions I've got for you. Your emotion when hearing that from North Melbourne, was it sadness, anger, disappointment? What would you could you make it one category, because you're so emotionally invested in that football club?
Yeah, I suppose I was disappointed to hear where they wanted to go, and probably a little bit sad too, which I think's fair when you put a lot into a club. But I can understand as well, that they want to move in a different direction, and people have got to make calls sometimes. So that's the way things worked out. At the end of the day, I think even just for myself mentally, I had to move on pretty quickly and look to the future. And what the opportunity that I've got at Melbourne, the opportunity they've given me, is pretty exciting, and I'm really looking forward to starting at the club, because I think looks like Melbourne's moving in a really strong direction. So I'm excited to be hopefully a part of that.
And Ben, that was the extension. The second part of the question was, you go from a club that they said they didn't want you, but at the same point you kind of knew the direction that they were heading, to be able to sort of jump camps and go into a club that feels like it can be a contender next year, whether that's right or wrong, that's what they feel. How quickly does that disappointment leave you and you go, oh, geez, this is actually going to work out really well for me?
Yeah, like I said, you've got to move on as quickly as possible, even just for your own, for yourself mentally. So I tried to put my feelings aside, I suppose, in leaving North to try and look at another club. But I think it is always a conflict of feelings, and I think it wouldn't be fair to say that I've completely left North Melbourne and the memories that I had there behind, because I think I've made some memories and some friends at North Melbourne that I'll hold for the rest of my life. But the feeling that I get when I think about going to Melbourne and starting a big pre-season and hopefully playing finals next year is it's definitely great. So definitely looking forward to it.
Ben, the role you play, obviously you play full forward, but Melbourne's got Wiedemann, Jackson, Tom McDonald still there. How have they sort of explained early doors how the forward mix is going to work?
I suppose it's been a little bit of, just talking to me about what I can bring to the club, I suppose, in terms of leadership and things like that for some of the younger guys. But obviously working in with some of the older guys like Tom, and trying to make this mix as potent as possible next year. I think they've probably got a little bit of a younger forward line, particularly in, Wiedemann and Jackson and a few of their small forwards as well. Obviously, Jake Melksham's been around a while, but some of the younger guys at Melbourne, to make this group as potent as possible. And so I suppose I'll try to work in with those guys as much as possible. But I know that this is going to be a learning process for me as much as anything. Trying to learn a new game plan, new teammates and how they play, because that's as important as anything in me trying to have some success at Melbourne.
It's going to be a very tall forward line, Ben.
Well, we'll obviously have to work through that, and it's exciting that we've got a whole lot of options that I'm coming in there to play with, and I'll try to learn off these guys as much as hopefully have them learn some things off me too. But like I said, got a bit of learning to do over the next few months. It's really exciting to go to a club that's got as many talented footballers as it does. So it'll be an exciting time.
So there's been conversation this year, and I think it's probably unfair, but it's been happening through the year, considering your body. You played 9 games, and there's have been question marks about whether or not you'll be able to get back to the player that you've been for the previous 4 years, which was out of this world, I reckon, for the Kangas. And I still can't believe where we are, I must admit. But are you confident that you can get back to 100% fitness and be the player that you were for the next 4 years at the Dees, or is there a slight hesitation?
No, I'm supremely confident in my body. I think that's one thing I haven't had any concerns about through this whole process. I had a bit of an unlucky injury this year, but aside from that, I think I've shown over the previous few years that I've barely missed a game out on the field. So, after a relatively minor surgery towards the end of this year, and I think, if it had been a longer season, if we hadn't been stacking games together with the COVID period being how it was and playing, 4-day breaks and 5-day breaks to get the season finished as quickly as possible, I reckon in a normal season I would have got back out to play a number of games this year. But just the nature of the season meant that wasn't possible. I've got no worries that next year things will be good, and I'll be back out there playing 22 games plus a few finals, hopefully.
Ben, we follow you very closely on our show because of Rama, and also you've been in the studio a couple of times with us, and we chart your progress very closely. So we know how many goals you have kicked over the last 4 or 5 years. That's as many as anyone. But with what has gone on, did it rock your confidence? I mean, we know your body. You've just said your body will be okay, but just from a confidence perspective, what's that done to you?
Probably a little bit of distance from the season this year's helped. And looking at how North are playing the game this year, and obviously we had a few losses, throughout particularly the second part of the year. I think basically the answer to your question is no. I'm still really confident in the way I play the game. I know that it stacks up, and I think I've put together the evidence of that over the last 6 or 7 years in the game. So I definitely feel confident in the way I go about my football. And like I said, I'll have a learning process at Melbourne to try and figure out how they play the game and how I can best fit into that. But I'm confident that coming into the Melbourne Footy Club, I'm joining a club that will allow me to play to my strengths, and that will allow me to get the most out of myself. I think that's best for everyone. So, that's definitely something that we delved into during this interview process, and Melbourne definitely stood out in that aspect. So yeah, I feel really confident in the way that I go about my footy, and that I'll be back to my best in 2021.
I think your heart will mend when you start playing games at a new club. But even talking to you, Ben, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you still sound a bit heartbroken.
I don't know if I'd say heartbroken. It's definitely it's extremely hard to leave a place that you've poured so much of yourself into, and I still feel really grateful to North Melbourne for what they gave me the past 7 years. They gave me an opportunity when no one else would. In the 2013 draft, when I was going for my fourth draft in the AFL. So it's hard not to have obviously some emotion attached to that, and the place and some of the people there that you leave behind. It is really hard to leave, but at the same time, I've really come to terms with it, and I'm really looking forward to the next stage. This is the footy business and how it works. And I'm not the first person that's moved clubs. So I've talked to a few people who have done it already, and I've come to the conclusion, I suppose, it can be a really exciting move for you, and something that can be a real positive in terms of your career. So, I'm really excited to get started at Melbourne. They're a great footy club with a long history. Obviously, community partnerships and programs are really important for me, and the Dees tick that off too. So I'm really excited to get involved with the club.
Ben, is there any Melbourne player in your time as an opposition player up until this point that used to really give you the Jimmy Brits and that you're going to have to repair some relationships with when you get in there? Is there someone that used to drive you mad?
No, not too many. They've always been pretty kind to me. So,
that's disappointing.
But the odd barb or two. But no, I think even anything that's been said before, you put aside when you walk through the door, I think.
Don't be afraid to get him a little headlock early just to stamp your authority. It's not a bad idea either. Hey, good luck to you. It's obviously a great opportunity to continue your career at the Dees, a 4-year deal. They'll be very happy about that. I'm still trying to work out how it happened, but good luck to you, and I hope it goes well for you. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks very much, everyone.